One little last thing we want to do on like the back patio area, some back pavers and stuff.
How you doing, sir?
Wait till next year. We got the outside painted. Just got the yard shaped.
Is it just you this year? Gave it up? I never knew.
I'm okay, open discussion.
I would like for the pledge to be given by Representative Lamb. Just behind you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll recognize Senator Elliott. House and Senate, we're balancing things.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We've got some elections coming up.
Prayer. Give him prayer.
If y'all would, please pray with me. Almighty God, to whom we must account for all our powers and privileges, guide the people of the United States and our municipalities in the election of officials and representatives, that by faithful administration and wise laws, the rights of all may be protected, and our nation be enabled to fulfill your purposes. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, I'm calling the meeting to order. Could you please call the roll?
Senator Carnley.
Here.
Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Elliott.
Here.
Senator Gavan.
Here.
Senator Stewart.
Here.
Representative Lamb.
Here.
Representative Pringle. Representative Rafferty. Representative Simpson. Representative Underwood.
I'm here.
Representative Wilcox.
Here.
And Senator Kelly.
Here.
8, and we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. All right, our first order of business today is our new co-chair. Our first order of business today is our new co-chair. Do I have Senator Gavan.
I'd like to nominate Senator Keith Kelly.
Second.
All right, this motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
You may have the gavel.
Yeah, I just want to get on the other side away from you.
Keep it right here, though, in case I need it, you know.
Nah, Chris has done warned me about that. So. Well, thank you. I appreciate being able to serve with you, and appreciate the opportunity that you've given me, and look forward to working with you, making things run good and smooth. At this time, I'd like to welcome the new members to the committee, Senator Carnley.
Thank you.
And would you like to give a speech?
Sure.
We'll get it later. We won't give a Senator Elliott. We're glad to have you. I want to ask you about speech.
I wondered who I ticked off.
And Representative Lamb, we're glad to have you. So, with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. Ms. Thomas, if you would, you've each got a sheet in front of you there, and we're going to go in the order that it is here. And so we'll take them one by one, and each one of you can make notes and ask questions as we go. Just raise your hand, we'll get to you, or just ask for the privilege there. So, Ms. Thomas, if you would take care of us.
Thank you so much. The first board we have today is the Board of Prosthetists and Orthotists. This board was created by Act Number 2002-527. They provide for the regulation and licensing of persons administering prosthetic and orthotic care and orthotic suppliers. They're empowered to register orthotic suppliers and facilities where prosthetic, orthotic, or prosthetic and orthotic care is provided and for patients needing the care. Since their last sunset review, there were 2 new acts passed. One was Act Number 2022-129, and it further defined an orthosis. The second one was Act 2023-326, and it amended the board statutes to require national boards making certifications to the state board to be approved by the state board, to delete requirements relating to the accreditation of national boards, and to ratify any prior action of the state board in conformance with the date and any decision they had made prior to that act. This board is comprised of 9 members. 3 members are appointed by the governor. One of those is a licensee of the board, 1 consumer, and then 1 physician licensed to practice medicine in the state. 2 members are appointed by the lieutenant governor, both which shall be licensed by the board. 2 members are appointed by the Speaker of the House, a licensed podiatrist, and then another licensee of the board. 1 member is appointed by the President Pro Tem of the Senate. That person should be a licensee of the board. And then the last one is appointed by the Speaker Pro Tem of the House, who shall be a licensee of the board. The board members serve 4-year staggered terms. They all have to be, of course, residents of Alabama. And then they have to have 1 member must be a private citizen, and then 1 member must be a consumer of orthotic or prosthetic services. So they have 1 consumer that is required by law, and there is 1 serving. There is no specific statutory requirement regarding racial representation. They do have 2 minority members currently serving. There is no specific statutory requirement for geographical representation. They do have representation from congressional districts 2, 3, 5, and 6, and 7 at the moment. The boards are compensated at a rate of $100 a day plus travel expenses. This board has an administrative services contract with Total Political Solutions to provide administrative services. Ronald Ezel serves as the board's executive director. The current contract amount is $9,828.97 per month. It's $117,947 each year. The current contract expires at the end of September. They do not have any other employees. Their statutes require that the Attorney General of the state act as their legal advisor, so they are represented by the Attorney General's office. Tara Hetzel serves as their legal counsel. We took a look at their website and found that the board's current statutes, rules, and disciplinary actions are there. Their continuing education requirements are there. They do not have their board's meeting minutes on the website, but they do have other useful information. The board's funds are from licensing fees, fines, and penalties. Their funds are held in the state's treasury. There are no required distributions, and they retain their funds at the end of the year. The board issues 12 types of licenses. As of October 1st, 2024, they have 353 licensees. On page 5 of the report that you have, it is the licensure qualifications. They have to have an advanced degree to be a prosthetist or orthotist, or you can be a combination of both. You can have an associate's degree, but then you have to have some other qualifications, some other training to do that. You can have a temporary license, and that's somebody who has done everything they need to do to become, and they're just still waiting to get their license cleared through the board. So they issue temporary licenses. They also issue assistance licenses, and those You have to have a high school diploma or GED and complete a 12-month residency under a prosthetist or orthotist. They have orthotic suppliers, mastectomy fitters, therapeutic shoe fitters, orthotic fitters, podorthists, and then they have facilities that are also accredited by the board. You do have to pass an examination for certification as a prosthetist or orthotist, and there are 3 types of examinations given. They have a multiple choice exam, a simulation exam, and a clinical patient exam. Alabama State University is the only school in our state that offers a master's in this program. We do have some exam statistics for you on page 8, and these were obtained from the national exam organizations that provide the exam for Alabama candidates. And those also are on the top of page 9 for the different types of exams that are given. As far as reciprocity, current licensees in other states may be granted licensure in Alabama if the board determines that the credentialing standards set by the other state are substantially equivalent to those in Alabama. The licensees, a lot of them renew online. In FY24, 72% were renewing online. They have to, the licenses issued by the board expire on December 31st of each year. They have a month to get them renewed. That is for prosthetists and orthotists, mastectomy fitters, shoe fitters, and orthotic fitters. Sorry, some of these words are tongue twisted for me. Those are renewed annually on January 1st. There were not licensee demographics collected by the board, so we don't have any of that presented for you. We do have continuing education information for each of the type of licensees. A lot of them have to do a minimum of 1 hour continuing education and board approved courses for whatever license they have. Others have the more advanced licenses have to do a minimum of 75 hours for single disciplines and 100 hours if they are the combination of a prosthetist and orthotist. And no more than 1/3 can be a distance learning, so they have to get that in person. On page 12, we have the significant issues for this board. The first significant issue is the board did not post vacancy notices to the Secretary of State's website at least 45 days prior to the expiration of 2 board members' terms that expired on September 30th of 2023. The next 2 issues are from the questionnaires that we sent out. 24 licensees responded to our survey, and the following issues were noted. 10 of the 24 responded that they believe the most significant issue facing their profession is insurance and reimbursements. Additionally, 6 of them believe that the most significant issue is that licensing fees are too expensive. And then they also think that non-licensed companies, individuals are a big issue for their profession. 15 of the licensees who responded do not believe that regulation by the board is necessary to protect the public. 14 thought that the board's laws, rules, or policies were an unnecessary restriction on the practice of their profession. And then 9 thought that they were not adequately informed by the board of changes and interpretation of the board's positions on policy, rules, and laws. The next significant issue is regarding facilities, and these also came from our questionnaires. They responded that the most significant issue facing the profession was, again, insurance and reimbursements, and then licensing fees being too expensive. They did not believe the regulation of the board was necessary to protect the public. They had 50% of those who responded to the survey thought that the board's rules and laws and policies were an unnecessary restriction, and that they didn't think that they were adequately informed by changes in interpretations to the board's positions, the rules, and laws. This board did have one prior significant issue come forward. It was from 2021, and we considered it to be unresolved. The prior issue was that the board's cash balances at the end of each fiscal year were declining, and that was when we looked from 2017 to 2020. So this year we looked at 2021 to 24. And so the board's cash balance has continued to decline. The cash balance at the end of fiscal year 2020 was $182,931. The cash balance at the end of fiscal year 24 was $177,394, which that's only a 5% decrease or 3%. However, we did note that the board's expenditures exceeded revenues collected in 21, 23, and 24.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
On their personnel salaries and benefits, it shows $1,000 on our spreadsheet. I don't understand how that take place.
Right, so they're, I have a note. That's for the board member compensation. It's included in that amount that's on your sheet. So they don't have personnel because they pay an executive director through an administrative services contract.
Okay, so it's not listed as salaries.
Yes, ma'am.
And then for a question for tomorrow, I'd like to know, I noticed there's only 15 states total regulate this industry in the United States. So I want to know if there's some particular reason why we regulate this industry and if there's some insurance reimbursement that requires that they be certified by the state.
Okay.
So is there anybody here from that board? Could you find that out for me tomorrow, please, and bring it to us tomorrow? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other members? Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
All right, on page 11, we talk about the personnel, again, that the board doesn't employ the personnel. They contract with Total Political Solutions for their administrative services. Their legal counsel is provided by the Attorney General's office. There's just some detail there that the pay rate is $195 per hour for the attorney services, and then they are reimbursed for the cost of travel and other expenses. On page 15, you have some performance characteristics. It shows the licensee numbers from fiscal year 21 through 24. You'll see that they're decreasing from 21 to 24, 396 to 388 to 368 to 354. We also show the percentage of fines of the receipts. I will say that the large number that you'll see in 2021, that was from 21 fines from complainants in cases that had been closed in prior years, and they had just collected the money then. It wasn't just, it was kind of a one-off situation in that year for it to be so high. You can see the other years are not, or they're much slower. Inspections are also noted here. Inspections were conducted annually to ensure compliance, and this is for the facilities that are licensed. According to the minutes of the board's May 12, 2021 meeting, the board decided to no longer conduct inspections in an attempt to resolve the issue of their expenses exceeding their revenues. There were 37 inspections done in 2021, and all 37 passed inspection. The facilities are still inspected by national accreditation agencies every 3 years after their initial accreditation. The complaint handling information and complaint information data is on pages 16 and 17. The board received 2 complaints during the period, and they resolved both complaints. They were both determined to have no probable cause. The financial information begins on page 19. We have their fee schedule. And then on page 20, we have their receipts and disbursements. You can see that their unobligated cash balance at the end of the year has gone down. The beginning was the $182,931 at 10/1/2020, and then at 9/30/2024 we were down to $177,394, and that's just their cash balance at the end of the year. That's not considering their reserve for year-end obligations. We have a professional services chart on page 22 that shows you the main categories of where they're spending their funds. And then there's detail on page 45 that gives you where those funds were spent.
Representative Underwood.
That's kind of where I wanted to start. A quick question on I'm not familiar with Total Political Solutions, so I don't know if they're new in the game or been doing this for a while. But I'm looking across the on page 45 across the line from 21 through 24. You know, their fees are $150, $76, $131, $135. So in 22 it dropped significantly and moved down the line to accounting and auditing. And it's roughly, I mean, I know it's you put them together. But I'm just curious what they did in the year 2022.
That was coding with the comptroller's office. It's
Okay.
the same services.
All right, that's good. Thank
And
you,
it
ma'am.
totals up to $120,989.
Right. I knew it was similar in note in dollar amounts, and I just wanted to make sure of that. Thank you.
Senator Graham.
Thank you. So I want to hit on a couple of things, and some of this I'm not. Some of this I'm just setting the grounds. It's not so much for our world as it is for contract review, and I don't even know if this group comes in front of contract review. But we've got an overriding issue, I think, with a lot of the questions that where contracts are coming in front of contract review. I think they ought to be able to kill and not delay for just 45 days. And the reason for that is what's the executive? We can't overrule this. If it's DHR or mental health or ALDOT, all we can do is slow them down for 45 days. I get it. But we need to take another look at some of these things that are what I don't consider to be the executive. And I'm going to point out some of these. And again, some of these people may never come in front of contract review, but it's the principle of the matter. Here we got 3 members appointed by the governor, 2 by the lieutenant governor, 1 by the pro tem of the Senate, 1 by the pro tem of the House, and 2 by the Speaker. That's not the executive. So I think that's something we need to be looking at as we go forward on a lot of these issues and how we deal with things at contract review. So that's one thing I want to point out. On this particular. Well, the issue is, I mean, you look at some of these, one of these coming up, it's the executive appoints, I think, everybody, but their hands are tied. And in many of these instances, the pro tem and the speaker's hands are tied about a nomination coming from, Group X. So the speaker's making the appointment, the pro tem's making the appointment, the governor, but are they really making the appointment? Yeah. The industries are making it. And that's not the executive. And we ought to be able to stop their contracts if we think they're bad contracts. I'm not trying to get in the governor's business, people. Please don't take it that way. Significant issues. Now, I thought we talked about in the past about trying to break this out into issues of note or something like that. Like if you look on page 12, they're having insurance and reimbursement problem. Well, so are all the doctors. I mean, lots of people are. But that's not something that we're going to fix in their enabling legislation. And I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to know, but it shouldn't be. I mean, they're not going to fix this. If we're going to put this on here, it's going to be on here in perpetuity. They hadn't fixed their significant issue because they're going to have problems with reimbursements. So I don't think that this is fair to ding the group with a significant issue when it's an industry situation. I mean, later on, the foresters' big issue is that especially if you get up in your neck of the wood, pulp and paper industry stinks. We can't fix that. They can't fix that. And it's a fact. But it's not a significant issue that should ding the board. It's not their fault. There's nothing they can do about it. I do think the interesting thing that 50% of the facilities interviewed and 63% of the licensees said they don't need to be regulated. Well, I imagine there's a lot of people who don't want to be regulated. And when I look at some of the passage rates on here, I'm thinking, well, maybe they do need to be regulated. It's 0% passing in a few years. So I just think that's something that maybe we need to look at over time and evaluate. I don't think that's a today issue, but those are the things I wanted to point out about this particular group. And I will say, in Representative Simpson's absence, I do notice Mobile is fairly well represented throughout a lot of these organizations, but I do have some gripes to point out to some other people on some other ones.
Thank you, Senator Gavan. Any other member? Senator Elliott.
One question, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Gavan, that's very insightful. I think we need to look at that. But I question, Dixie, when I look at the receipts in 2020 and 2021, I'm on page 20. When you see an increase in revenue, whether that's through fines and penalties or whatever, guess what you also see? An automatic, absolute increase in expenditures. And so when we had an opportunity to have a bump in revenue, what did we do? We spent it all. And I think that's something that we need to talk about tomorrow as we see on your spreadsheet here that they continue to spend 103.82% on professional services. And so when we have a good year, what do? We went right back out the door.
And well, it's along the line while Senator Van brought up some of the things. There's one other thing that I want to put out there, not necessarily pertaining to this particular board, but it could be. And that's emergency orders, because contract review is very limited on what they can do with those. And there's an extreme abuse going on with those, in my personal opinion. And so I think we need to rein that in as well when we're looking at these different boards, make note of who's abusing that, what it's being for. So any questions or comments at this time? Okay.
That's all I have for this board, unless y'all have other questions for me.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Let's move on to Sickle Cell Commission.
All right, this is the Alabama Sickle Cell Oversight and Regulatory Commission. This commission was created by Act Number 1996-727 to ensure the delivery of sickle cell services to all affected persons in the state of Alabama. They assist in establishing geographic service delivery boundaries. They provide funding for 2 different types of entities, centers and chapters. Centers are affiliated with either hospitals or universities and are oriented more towards research on the sickle cell disease, and chapters, often called foundations, are community-based organizations which provide support to those who may be faced with the condition. There are 12 members of this commission. They are appointed as follows. 2 are appointed by the governor. 1 member is appointed by the University of South Alabama Comprehensive Sickle Cell Center. 1 member appointed by the University of Alabama at Birmingham. 1 member is appointed by the Children's Hospital of Birmingham, and 1 member from each of the 7 chapters of the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, Alabama Chapter Incorporated. There's one in North Alabama, the North Alabama Sickle Cell Foundation, the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America in Central Alabama. There is also a chapter in West Alabama and a Mobile chapter in the Sickle Cell Foundation of Greater Montgomery, the Southeast Alabama Sickle Cell Association, and at the time of this report, the Tri-County Sickle Cell Association did not exist, but if they do come back, they will have an appointment. Members serve terms of 4 years. Members shall be citizens of the state. There is no specific statutory requirement for consumer representation nor racial representation. There are currently 10 minority members serving. There are no geographical representation requirements, and that is because they are appointed by those chapters. That was what I think, because they're appointed from chapters all over the state. The members receive no salary. The board has an administrative services contract with Smith Warren Management Services. Keith Warren, president of that company, serves as their executive director. The current annual contract amount is $2,000 a month or $24,000 annually. The current contract expires in January of 2026. There are no employees of this commission. The legal counsel is provided by the Attorney General's office. We did take a look at their website, and it has their current statutes, rules, the members, staff, a listing of centers and chapters, resources, and the commission's minutes. The minutes of their meetings are on the website as well. This board does not actually issue any licenses, so there's no licensee information in this report, so it jumps straight to financial information. They receive appropriations from the Alabama Education Trust Fund. They receive those each year. There are appropriations for how much they can spend on travel and other expenses, and then have an amount to be used to send to the centers and chapters to fund the programs. The significant issues start on page 5. The first significant issue is that the commission allowed its administrative services contract with Smith Warren Management Services to lapse on September 30th, 2024. This lapse required the commission to enter into an emergency contract for continued administrative services. The second issue is stemming from the surveys that we send out. 3 of the 5 commission members responding to our surveys indicated that the members had concerns about the continuity of care, consistency of follow-up, and information released by community-based organizations, and the commission members indicated that the commission does not receive regular reports of its operations from the executive director. If you flip the page, you'll find that we had 2 significant issues that came from prior reports come forward. The first one has to do with postings to the Secretary of State's website. This commission did not notify the Secretary of State at least 45 days of the expiration of members' terms, and that was back in 2022. The next significant issue was from questionnaires when we surveyed the commission members. The last time 4 of the 9 members stated that the commission was not adequately funded, and this time the 4 of the 5 that responded also said that they did not believe that the commission was adequately funded.
I would like to point out on the significant issue exactly what I was talking about. I find it ironic that the administrative company doing the administrative services allowed their own contract to expire and have to do an emergency contract. And, you know, that would be pretty embarrassing to most folks. But we're going to see this over and over, this type of thing. I'm sorry.
On page 7, we have the organizational chart and the personnel. Once again, this commission does not employ personnel. They have an administrative services contract with Smith Warren Management Services, and their legal counsel is the Attorney General's office. On page 8, we show how much money was dispersed to the chapters from the appropriations from the Education Trust Fund each year. With the Tri-County chapter from Selma not being, not existing at the moment, their money is split between the Greater Sickle Cell Foundation of Montgomery and then the Southeast Alabama Sickle Cell Association. The commission did not receive any complaints during the sunset period from fiscal year 21 to 24, but we still have their complaint handling process there for your information. The board's receipts and disbursements are on page 10. You'll see that each year they get their appropriation from the Education Trust Fund. They have the administrative expenses, and then the grants and benefits are where they are dispersing the funds to the chapters. Their professional services information is on page 12. And then they have, once again, like the accounting services that it shows as accounting services, that's their administrative services contract. It's coded that way in the comptroller's books for some places.
Hold on just a moment.
I can't help but wonder if this shouldn't be put under the Alabama Department of Public Health, if they're not getting the resources they need operating independently. If there's anybody here from that agency, if you'd try to get me that answer for tomorrow, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Senator Van.
Thank you. One first question. Ms. Thomas, it seems like these members come in front of confirmations. Am I remembering that? It's not noted here.
1 second.
We get a lot coming through, so I may be mixing them up.
Yes, they do. They are subject to confirmation by the Senate.
Okay, I would, this is one of 2. I'd like to go ahead and make a suggestion. I don't think these people need to be confirmed by the Senate. I mean, that's maybe if you look at the way they're appointed, maybe we should. But I think that's something maybe we could take off of Chairman Weaver's plate in terms of this. I mean, once again, the governor appoints 2 of these. The rest of these, and I understand that there's some issues there with certain boards, but there's nobody from the Black Belt on this board. There's nobody from Auburn, Opelika. There's nobody from the Shoals. And so they do need to do some work, I think, even though it's not. And I would like to just point out, this is one of those things like there's no racial representation. Wouldn't it be silly to have racial representation on this when it almost exclusively affects minorities? So, I mean, just pointing that out. I mean, I think we probably ought to take a strong look at this and another board later, removing them from being required for Senate confirmation. And then once again on page 6, significant issue, their funding. I mean, they need to go request funding somewhere else. That's not a Sunset Committee issue. But I kind of like your idea of maybe rolling them in with another group.
And if you don't mind me joining in discussion, Mr. Chair, you know, this is a function of Alabama Department of Public Health. And as I understand, just by reading this report, these are basically volunteers trying to help manage and promote the cure or better treatment for sickle cell. And I think that those resources might be at the Alabama Department of Public Health, where there's medical professionals to help back them up, and just take it out from underneath Sunset altogether and make it a department. We've had to do that with some other departments, you know, make them more responsible for some of the outcome. The behavioral board that we had a couple of years ago. So to me, this is one of those that's prime. They're not doing that well financially, and they don't feel like they're getting their resources. Maybe we should try a different model for them. Thank you.
Senator Elliott? Oh, I'm sorry.
Representative Wilcox, obviously, I agree with what you're saying, and Senator Gavan about putting this, or looking at putting this under the Department of Health. I think it would be much more efficient. As it relates to funding, I think that's a good solution too, but I can't help but notice, if you look at page 10 under professional services, as we were filling out a survey saying we don't have enough money, there is a 54% year-over-year increase in professional services. While we're saying we don't have enough money, a 54% increase in professional services. And so I think we need to look at the management of the board and whether or not it can be more effectively and efficiently managed somewhere like the Department of Health. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know there were some discussions last year about reorganizing the Tri-County chapter, and I know this organization has done great work surrounding sickle cell advocacy. So I just wanted to get an update on when that chapter would be reorganized. Maybe that's a tomorrow question.
I think the executive director will be able to provide that information to you tomorrow, sir.
Senator Carnley?
There on the financial information, could you explain to me what the education trust fund reversions are? I mean, just in general, what that is?
So when they don't they give all the money to the chapters that they're required to do. Sometimes it spans fiscal years, but so they give all the money that they're supposed to the chapters, but if they don't spend everything that they're allotted for the other expenses, it reverts back.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Go ahead.
That's all I have for this board.
Okay. All right. And now the Construction Recruitment Institute.
The Alabama Construction Recruitment Institute was established by Act Number 2010-2020 to educate the public concerning the construction workforce opportunities and to provide workforce training programs for construction trades and to recruit suitable craft trade workers for the construction industry in Alabama. This board has a board of directors with 6 members, 1 member appointed by the governor, and that is upon a nomination and submission by the Construction Users Roundtable, 1 member appointed by the lieutenant governor from a nomination from the Alabama State Construction Building Trades. 2 members are appointed by the Speaker of the House. 1 nomination comes from the Alabama Associated General Contractors and 1 from the Alabama Road Builders Association. 2 members are appointed by the President Pro Tem of the Senate. 1 is from the Alabama Associated Builders and Contractors, and 1 by the Subcontractors Association of Alabama. These members these serve 4-year terms. They must reside in Alabama, and no director shall continue to serve as a member after ceasing to be an active member of the association or organization that made the nomination of their appointment. There's no specific statutory requirements for consumer representation. There is no specific statutory requirement for racial representation. There is 1 minority member currently serving, and there is no requirements for geographical representation. The board of directors members do not receive a salary. They are only reimbursed reasonable expenses. Their administrator is Jason Phelps. He is appointed by the board of directors, and his current salary is $142,564.80. The board has 2 offices, one in Montgomery and one in Hoover. They have 6 employees, and they have a legal services agreement for the Attorney General's office to provide their legal services. We did take a look at their website. Their website contains information on career fairs, events, and training and opportunities to the construction-related fields and jobs. It does not include information about the board of directors or their activities. It is dedicated more to jobs and trades and similar opportunities. The ACRI is funded by the mandatory construction craft industry fee. This is a fee that is imposed on the wages paid by the employer to the employees engaged in skilled labor in the performance of construction contract or jobs in the state of Alabama. So the fees collected less the cost of appropriation are deposited to the credit of ACRI. So the Department of Revenue collects this and then gives it to them. They operate in the state treasury and they retain their funds at the end of the year. The significant issues begin on page 5. There were 2. The first one is that the Institute did not comply with its leave policies to ensure that leave was accrued and recorded properly for its employees. The errors, once we notified the Institute of the errors, they fixed those as soon as we told them about it. The second issue was that they did not notify the Secretary of State of vacancies occurring on the board of directors. And that was all the issues that board had. On page 6 and 7, we have the organization and the personnel for this board. Like I said, there are 6 employees. They're listed there, their classification and their salaries.
Okay, let's hold just a moment. Senator Gavan.
I thought she was done. I want to wait till she's done with the.
Okay. Go ahead, Diggs.
On page 8 and 9, we have some performance characteristics, and these are this is information and statewide totals provided by the Construction Recruitment Institute about enrollment in the universities or colleges and universities in our state and the majors. So the different majors, and it's like first-time enrollments, the overall enrollment, and the percentage that are enrolled in majors that are supported by this program. So a lot of your trades. Page 10 has just graphs that show that information in a picture form. Page 11 is the financial information. It explains that this board is funded by the fee that is collected on the wages of certain employees performing construction work. Page 12 is their receipts and disbursements. Their unobligated cash balance at the end of 2024 was $1.7 million. You will see that they do have up in their receipts, they get some reimbursements from an interagency agreement from the Alabama Construction Industry Craft Training Board. They have an agreement with them if they can reimburse some of the expenses that are allowable use of that money, that they will send it over. Their professional services are on page 14. And then the detail for those can be found on page 26. On page 27, it starts with more detailed information about the number of first-time undergraduates enrolled in the majors at the particular community colleges and districts throughout the state. So you can see how many people are in the trade majors at all the community colleges. We also included on page 34 how much money was funded out through the Go Build Alabama sponsorships for fiscal years 23 through 25.
Okay. All right, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, once again, on the board of directors, hands completely tied or virtually tied on the appointing process, and don't think it should be entitled to executive discretion in terms of any contract review situations. And look, I'm I cut my teeth largely on the construction industry and commercial real estate, residential real estate world. I'm a lifetime board member for the Huntsville-Madison County Home Builders. I know we've got issues out there, and they're bad. I mean, we have done good work with NAHA, and this last year expanding that statewide to get new training. I think that's a great opportunity. There's things we're working on. We've got to continue to work. But my question is, we just spent we're talking about trying to control, Chairman Albritton's talking all the time about basically this ain't going to be all a gravy train forever. And it may not be death by 1,000 cuts, but it's limping, maybe damage by 1,000 cuts. And, and I know everybody's special. If you don't think everybody's special that comes in front of our board, just pay attention to the complaints when Senator Elliott files his bill again on rolling some of these things in. Everybody's special. And I'm sure my phone will be lighting up between now and tomorrow, but I want to hear an explanation why this shouldn't be rolled into the Secretary of Workforce.
I would agree. You are special, Senator DeVan, in many ways. Senator Elliott.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You stole the words out of my mouth, Senator DeVan. I mean, we set up the Department of Workforce, right? Touted that as an efficient way to get all of this under control. Got all these different silos all over the place, and I am a contractor. This is desperately needed. But I think there are two levels of efficiency here, right? One is, is there a better way to do this administratively? Do we already have a state agency set up to do for this express purpose? And then, again, I go back to the data. I'm on page 12. You look at cash balances at the end of the year, right? Since 2020, you see an increase in cash balances and ending in $1.754 million just sitting in cash. And so if we have these problems, Senator Van and the rest of the committee, what are we doing? We're collecting the cash to address them. How are we employing these dollars? And we've got Senator Reed over there. He's got some great people working for him right now that know what they're doing and are ready to put this money to use and are ready to go. This right here is a prime example of how we can follow through on a step we've already taken, which is to consolidate and streamline and increase efficiency in how we are addressing this issue under the Secretary of Workforce. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Elliott. Representative Underwood.
Just clarification, tying into what you said, Senator. The 1.7 in unobligated cash balance is basically their annual income. So they have a 12-month buffer. That's too many. That's too much to sit. It needs to be used. I agree.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Dixie, go ahead.
That's all I have for this board unless y'all have questions.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, may I real quick, because there was a little conversation here that I think was great. Where does the interest on those retained earnings go? Is it go back to the board or the general fund? Can you find out for me?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, we're at forestry now.
Okay, so the next board is the Alabama Board of the Registration for Foresters. This was created in 1957 by Act 1957-533 to license and regulate the professional practice of forestry. They had 5 acts passed in the 2021 session to provide for to eliminate certain requirements, to assign responsibility for successor members and organizations for nominations. They provided for the sale of nominal marketing materials, allowed the board to call special meetings within accordance with its bylaws, and grant the board discretion to relax or suspend continuing education requirements on a case-by-case basis. This board is comprised of 5 foresters appointed by the governor. They are selected from a list of 3 nominees recommended by the Alabama Division of the Society of American Foresters. They serve 5-year terms. The qualifications to be on this board: the registered forester has to have been engaged in the practice of forestry for at least 10 years prior to their appointment. There's no requirements for consumer representation. There's no specific statutory requirements for racial representation. There is one minority member currently serving. There are no geographical requirements. These board members are compensated $50 per diem when attending to the work of the board. They also get travel expenses. This board has an administrative manager, Nicole Horn. She's appointed by the board. Her salary is set by the board. They have one full-time employee, that is Ms. Horn. Their legal services are provided by the Attorney General's office. They do have subpoena power, and we took a look at their website, and they have good information on there. They have a calendar showing all the renewal dates, application dates, and exam due dates, the board's meeting dates. The current and past newsletters are all there, their statutes and rules, links for public records requests, detailed instructions for licensees on how to get their application in to get licensed, and then the renewal process, and then a lot of information about their continuing education requirements. Their board's meeting minutes, though, are not available on their website. The board is funded through licensing fees and the sale of promotional items. They are in the state treasury. The board retains unused funds at the end of the fiscal year. As of December 23rd of 2024, we had 1,020 registered foresters in the state. In order to be a forester, you have to have a bachelor's degree or higher from a school approved by the board and accredited by the Society of American Foresters. You have to pass an examination and have 2 years of experience. You have to pass an examination to be them. The board contracts or did contract with Dr. Scott Inneback to work on their examinations. He grades them. He develops the test question bank and keeps it up to date. The exams are given quarterly at the board's office in Montgomery, and then once a year at Auburn University. The examination fees are paid to the board. You can get your bachelor's degree in forestry from Auburn University or Alabama A&M. The examination rates are here. The top section is for the examinations that were given at the board's office, and this can include applicants or graduates from any school in-state or out-of-state. And then the box at the bottom are the examinations that were given at Auburn University, and those include Auburn graduates only. This board does grant, they can grant reciprocity for foresters to come into Alabama. They do have to have the standards for licensing that are comparable to ours. We have agreements with, well, the board has agreements with Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Licenses expire annually. The renewals are done 100% online. They do have continuing education requirements for their licensees. An annual minimum of 10 continuing forestry education hours have to be accrued from the prior 2 years at the license expiration date. But if you are 65 years or older, you do not have to participate in the continuing education program. The significant issues for this board are on page 7. The first one is that the board has a diminishing unobligated fund balance. The unobligated fund balance decreased from $106,906.69 in fiscal year 21 to $71,482 in fiscal year 24. That's a 33% decrease. It appears to be related to a 13% increase in the expenditures of the board, contrasting with only a 4% increase in revenue over the same period. The second significant issue is that the board did not always deposit checks in a timely manner. 40 deposits comprised of both online payments and checks were selected for review. It contained 254 checks. 74% of those, it took 6 to 38 days after receipt to put those in the bank. We did have a significant issue from questionnaires. 32 licensees responded to our survey. 31% of those consider that the market for timber to be the most significant issue facing their profession. And this is, their legal counsel explained this further to say that it was certain companies are buying up the sawmills, that is affecting the amounts paid to landowners and foresters, as well as increasing the cost of lumber and pulp for the consumer, and that the board is aware and agrees that it's an issue. Licensees, 22% of the licensees responding to our survey do not consider the continuing education requirements necessary for the competent practice of their profession. On page 9, we have some information about the personnel. They have one female administrative manager with an annual salary of $50,253.60. That is who is their administrative manager. They had an executive director prior to the employment to her, but she is retired, so this person is new in that position. They have legal counsel services provided by the Attorney General's office, and then they contract with a consultant to grade written examinations on an as-needed basis. You can see at the bottom of page 9 the performance characteristics that the number of foresters licensed in our state has increased from fiscal year 21 to 24. They had 986 in 2021, then 990, 998 to 1,016 in 2024. They did not collect any fines or penalties during the examination period. They had 6 complaints that were received. These are on page 11. All 6 were resolved. They didn't have, the complainant was either non-responsive, there was no jurisdiction, or the complaint was dismissed. The financial information can be found on pages 12 and 13. We have the financial information, which covers the fees, and then the receipts and disbursements are on page 13. The cash balance at the end of the year is $89,816.06. You will notice that the personnel costs are very different from the one employee that I talked about with a salary of about $50,000, and it shows $100,000 in personnel costs. Their previous executive director retired in fiscal year 25, and her salary was $100,000. It was much more, so that's the reason that doesn't really line up. On page 15, you have the professional services. The detail for those can be found on page 34. And the board members and the board's response is listed after that.
Okay. All right. Members, any questions, comments? Seeing none, go ahead. So now we're at home medical equipment.
All right, this is the Board of the Home Medical Equipment. It was created by Act 2000-739. They exercise licensing and regulatory authority over businesses engaged in medical devices usable in a residential setting. This board is set to have a minimum of 9 members appointed by the governor. There are currently 9 members on the board, and the membership is supposed to be comprised of the following. The majority of the members must be employed in a home medical equipment industry. There should be a consumer of home medical equipment service, a physician, and a representative from the acute care hospital community, and a representative from the home health agency community. Members serve 4-year terms. There is 1 consumer required by law. However, back in 2009, the board voted to expand its membership by 2 members, and that brought it to a total of 11 members. When the board did that, they added another person from the industry and 1 more consumer. So there is 1 consumer that is required by law. The board had added a consumer, and there is no consumer currently serving as of the date of this report. They may have had 1 appointed in the last few weeks. There is no specific requirement for racial representation. There's 1 minority member serving. There's no specific requirements for geographical representation. The board members do not receive compensation. They only receive travel. This board has an administrative services contract with the Austin Group. Claire Austin is the president of the Austin Group and serves as the board's executive director. The current contract amount is for $6,914 a month, or $82,971 a year. It began in May of 2025.
Excuse me. Who was the management prior to Austin Group?
I am not sure. I can find out.
Could you find that out for us
Yes.
for tomorrow?
Yes.
Thank you.
The board has 1 part-time state employee who serves as a board's inspector. That employment was approved in May 13 of 2025. They received their legal services from the Attorney General's office. Their website includes a calendar, the news, laws and rules, contact information, public records links, complaint information, disciplinary actions, license forms, a licensee roster, and the minutes of the board's meetings are available. Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Wilcox.
5 of the board members are expired? I was just making sure I was reading right and right.
Are you on the board member letter?
Yes.
Yes, according to
And
what?
then they also don't have a consumer.
Right. So the board, once we brought it to their attention that those spots were vacant, it's in the significant issues. They worked, I think they have voted since to, they're working to figure out how to not have the extra consumer spot because it wasn't filled. It's in the significant issues that I'll get to.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll let you keep going. That stands out to me when we have so many of them expired and they're being quote-unquote professionally managed.
Sorry.
She. Okay.
Okay. The board's funds are held in the state's treasury. Their unused funds are retained at the end of the fiscal year. The board had 441 licensees as of February 25th of 2025. You don't have to have any kind of examination for licensure. That we don't have any reciprocity agreements with any other states. Businesses so these licenses are issued to businesses, not individuals. There are some demographics about where the people who run those businesses are from on page 5, and there are no continuing education requirements. The significant issue start on page 6. The first is the board paid for services that should have been included in the contract with its administrative services provider. A review of the board's expenditures made during the examination period indicated the board expended funds in addition to the monthly contracted amount for personnel costs totaling $3,502 in fiscal year 24 and $3,107 as of July 8th in 2025 for an inspector. Unless subsequent authorization was voted on and approved by the board, the additional expenditures for personnel costs should have been covered under the terms of the contract. Upon notification of these erroneous payments, the board's administrative services provider reimbursed the board the combined amount of $6,609.64. So the contract stipulated that inspections would be included in the services provided. And then they paid someone extra. And when we told them about it, the administrative services provider reimbursed the board. The second significant issue is that the board did not properly monitor services received to ensure that contracted services were received as prescribed in its administrative services contract. The administrative services contract with the Austin Group includes a provision that states a base load of a minimum of 144 inspections will be conducted annually. In fiscal year 22, 74 inspections were conducted. In fiscal year 23, only 80 inspections were conducted. Significant issue 3 is that the board failed to properly notify the Secretary of State of vacancies occurring on the board. This was for vacancies, and this is for when they did post them, they didn't do it timely. So they didn't do it at all or they didn't do it timely. The fourth significant issue is that the board has not complied with certain provisions of executive orders issued by the governor. As I'm sure you all are aware, the governor issued a slew of executive orders a couple years ago, and we've been checking for compliance with those executive orders. The board did not provide documentation of its submission of the constituent services survey. The board did not provide documentation to demonstrate that it had established written policies concerning the disposal of unnecessary state vehicles, and they did not provide documentation that it had established the administrative rules to set reasonable fees for responding to public records requests. The last significant issue is on page 8, and this is that 2 consumer board positions are vacant, and one has been vacant since May of 2024, and the other one has been vacant since October of 2015. So their code sections set out that you have to have 1 consumer, and it's been vacant since May of 2024. And then at its January 27, 2009 meeting, the board unanimously voted to expand by 2 members, one being consumer and one being one from the industry. The consumer was appointed by the governor. A consumer was appointed to fill that position in 2012. However, it's been vacant since 2015. There was a consumer member appointed by the governor last week on August the 15th, 2025. So there has been someone to do that.
I had asked a minute ago if you knew who the administrative services provider was prior to the Austin Group, because they just took over May 1st of 2025. Do you know if it was that group or another group?
It was Smith Warren,
Okay,
had it prior to the Austin.
okay. And so that the Austin Group took over effective May 1st, 2025. Is that correct?
No, sir. They've been with Claire since April of 2020.
Okay,
That was just when that next contract.
that was the last contract.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Elliott. Mr. Chairman, Dixie, I have a question about the significant issues, just clarification on the first 2, if I can. And this is for the inspection services. So the first significant issue, we're saying your findings are that they've essentially been double billed for the inspection services, right? That should have been included in, or was included in the administrative services contract, and then was also billed separately, even though it was included in the contract. Is that what I'm?
Right. So the contract said that inspections would be included in the contract, and it said that they would have the minimum number that they had to perform, which is part of number 2. So they also paid someone to do inspections, and that is the personnel costs that we talk about in the first one.
Yeah, so I think, gotcha. So we billed for something we already should have included, and then we performed half of what we said we were going to perform inspection.
In 2 years, they did not perform the 144 minimum. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, comments? Representative Harper.
So by way of brag, I wanted to brag on you for catching that. I know we had that issue last year with another one of the boards, but to be aware of the contract and to reconcile that back to the expenditures for the year and make sure that's captured was a good catch. And I wanted to brag on y'all's office for making that catch. And one quick question on significant issue 2. So we underperformed on the number of inspections. Do you know how they chose who was to be inspected? Was it randomly, or do you know how that process was supposed to work?
So we explained it a little bit on page 11, and the board is authorized to inspect all license applicants to determine compliance with the requirements of this chapter prior to the issuance of a license. And they may conduct random inspections upon an application for renewal of a license for cause and as necessary to ensure the integrity and effectiveness of the process. And during their inspection, they collect appropriate data to ensure that if the applicant is seeking licensure is in compliance, or if it's a random one, that they are in compliance. So they have to do it if you're applying, and then they can when you're renewing.
So in the end, between those and the randoms, there was a number that they were supposed to capture, and that number wasn't captured.
Right. The number that is
Quantity.
in their contract says 144. And
Right.
so we have what they performed in each year.
Right. Okay.
And this is based on data that we got from them.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay? The personnel and legal counsel information is on page 10. The board does employ one white male retired state employee with an hourly rate of $35.72 as the board's inspector. The initial employment was not approved by the board per the meeting minutes, and per the board's response, they did approve this employment in May of 2025. So I haven't been able to check the minutes of that yet. It hasn't, because they're just not available yet because of the recent timing of the meeting. But the board president and executive director sent a letter saying that they had decided to hire him now.
But Mr. Chairman, if I may, but just to clarify, but they weren't supposed to hire this person because it was supposed to be included in the administrative services contract, right?
Right, it's in the contract. And now, should the board have decided that they had a need to have someone come in and do inspections over and above what was in their administrative services contract, the board could say, we need to hire somebody because we have a need to do more. And they have that discretion to do that. And now, had they done that and said, we need to hire this person to perform these inspections over and above what we already have in this contract, and we have a need for it, they can do that, and then it would be their discretion to hire somebody to do it. But we didn't see that.
Did they assert that as a reason for underperforming the inspections that were required of the previous contract?
That would be a question for them.
I figured. Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Okay.
I feel like I need a little bit more on that. So there was no board action to make the hire for the additional payroll expense for the investigation. Is that
Not-
what you're saying?
Not prior to May of 2025. So everything that we looked at was, the issues were prior to them, because we were there doing the sunset and,
Right.
and asked about it and said, did the board vote to hire this person to come in and do inspections because they saw a need that they needed it? Because they can, if they need that, if they determine
Sure.
that they need that for the running of their board, they can do that. But we did not have anything showing that they, as a board, had approved it.
That's what I needed. Thank you, ma'am.
Moving on.
Okay. The board did not have any complaints filed during the sunset period, but we have the complaint handling process outlined for you on page 12. The financial information starts on page 13 with their schedule of fees. Their receipts and disbursements are on page 14. Their unobligated cash balance at the end of fiscal year 24 is $420,961.19. Their professional services are on page 16, and then there is detail on page 30 in the back. And I looked up the congressional districts for Representative Simpson, but he's not here.
It's not my strong point, but why the big spike in revenue in 2021 and 2022?
I'm sorry. I can find out.
Thanks.
They did have a big increase from 21 to 22. They had an increase of more licensees, but I'll look and see if I can get you some more detail on that.
I guess I'd want to find out from the manager, was that people that they found that weren't licensed that they brought in, or was there a flood of COVID money that made everybody go into that business?
Right.
Just curious. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the surface mining.
The Alabama Surface Mining Commission operates under the authority laid out in code sections in Title IX, Chapter 16. They are charged with the adoption and enforcement of necessary rules and regulations to control surface mining, and the training and examination of persons engaged in the use of explosives in surface coal mining, and the establishment and enforcement of coal surface mining reclamation standards for the state, and general enforcement provisions of the state program pursuant to certain federal regulations. Their jurisdiction extends to mine opening, coal stockpile areas, waste disposal areas, sediment ponds, water discharges, coal washing facilities, and includes excavation of coal using surface mining techniques. They have had 3 acts passed since their last sunset review. They were all in 2021. These were relating to the Surface Mining Act of 1969 to update certain standards. They also require that the commission meets once every 2 months, except in certain circumstances. And then there was a law relating to the coal severance tax to further provide for the distribution of certain tax revenues. This board is 7 members appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate. They have 7 members currently serving. They serve 5-year terms. 1 member shall be appointed from one of the 3 counties in Alabama which produces the greatest number of tons of surface mine coal. 2 members shall be appointed from any of the coal-producing counties in Alabama. 1 member shall be appointed from the state at large. 1 member shall be a registered professional forester with not less than 10 years' experience in professional forestry. 1 member shall be a registered professional civil or mining engineer with not less than 10 years of experience. 1 member shall be a licensed attorney with not less than 10 years of experience, and all must be residents of the state of Alabama. There's no requirement for a consumer member. There's no specific statutory requirements concerning racial representation, but there are 3 minority members currently serving. The geographical representations are the commission member from one of the 3 counties that produces the most coal, and then 2 commission members appointed from any of the coal-producing counties. The board members are compensated $75 per day when they're conducting board business, and the chair is conducting is compensated $100 per day. The administrator is Kathy Love. She is appointed and serves at the pleasure of the commission with a salary of $176,961. The commission's principal office is statutorily required to be in Jasper, Alabama, and that is where it is. They have 20 employees. They have legal services provided to them by a part-time retired state employee and an employee of the Attorney General's office. They do have subpoena power. When we checked out their website, we saw that they have forms and contacts information. They have the regulations listed there, reference material, geospatial data, and a public records request link. It also has links to a licensee directory, current permit applications and permit decisions, and their minutes are available on their website. The board is funded through licensing and permitting fees. They get some general fund appropriation money and federal funds, fines and penalties, and forfeited reclamation funds. Their funds are held in 3 different special revenue funds in the state's treasury. They retain unused funds at year end in their operating accounts. As of September 30th, the active number of permits was 110. They issue surface mining operator permits, blaster certifications, and then they have mining permits. Blasters are required to take a written exam. The commission teaches, prepares, and administers and grades the examinations at their offices in Jasper. And according to them, the information they gave us, they do a good job. Everybody passed. So we do have some reciprocity that they can grant. They can grant blaster certification to persons holding a valid certification in another state, providing the requirements are substantially equivalent to those here in Alabama. Surface mine operating licenses must be updated annually prior to March 1st. Surface mining permits shall not exceed 5 years, but then the statutes go on to say that under certain circumstances, they can exceed 5 years if they need to. Blasters are certified for a 3-year period. Each blaster must apply for recertification no less than 90 days prior to the expiration of their certification. And blasters must acquire 12 hours of continuing education every 3 years to recertify or pass recertification examinations within a 12-month period. We only had one significant issue with this commission, and it was failure to properly notify the Secretary of State of vacancies occurring on the commission. And this was when we had terms expire and when we had people resign. On page 10, we have the personnel information about those who work for the commission with their salary ranges. They do have 11 vehicles assigned to them. These are primarily used from traveling to and from the mine sites. We have some information about their legal counsel. Once again, it's a retired state employee who serves, and it's someone from the Attorney General's office. The performance characteristics start on page 11. The number of licensees overall was declining, and they gave us active and inactive permits. So I took out just the active, and it still was 122 active in 2021, 131 active in 22, 109 active in 23, and then 110 in 2024. So it still declined over the period. You can see their percentage of fines and penalties as a percentage of their operating revenues. The performance characteristics continue. Would you guys like for me to go through these with y'all? Yes? Okay. The Surface Mining Commission inspectors are required to make at least one complete inspection and at least 3 partial inspections of the mine site once per quarter until a mine site is giving a Phase 2 bond release on the entire permit. The commission's rule require it to conduct an average of at least 1 partial inspection per month of each active surface coal mining and reclamation project under its jurisdiction, and shall conduct such partial inspections of each inactive site under its jurisdiction as necessary to ensure effective enforcement of the state's program. A partial inspection is an on-site or aerial review of a person's compliance with some of the permit conditions and requirements for the program. No aerial review may be counted as a partial inspection unless it is appropriately documented with observable factors, and the examiner shall collect evidence of any violations. We have a schedule of inspections that were conducted through the 4 fiscal years covered under the Sunset Review, as well as through February of 2025. They have 5 inspectors. You can see the average monthly inspections are pretty close in number for the 4 fiscal years. And then it shows the orders to cease operations and the number of violation notices issued for each year. The notice of violation is issued during a general inspection upon discovery of the operator being in violation of the board rules, and cessation orders are issued upon discovery that the operator has failed to abate a previous violation issued at a mining site. There's also permitting licensed operators to mine specific acreage. Permitting is based on an approved mining operation plan, and a mine operation plan addresses the sequencing and methodology of the mining operation from start through reclamation. The operation plans include when specific areas will be mined, how the mining will occur, where and how the coal spoils will be processed and disposed of, the treatment of potentially toxic coal spills, and how other environmental concerns are to be addressed, the preparation and maintenance of impoundments, the berm for diverting toxic runoff, construction and maintenance and haulage roads. It has a lot of information about how they're going to do the whole project.
Senator Carney.
And I don't know if this information is collected, but I just noticed in 2024, cessation orders and violation notices issued dramatically increased. I guess, do they tell you why?
I don't have that information, but
Okay.
the board may be able to tell us tomorrow.
It looks like the inspection numbers are actually down, but the number of violations and cessation orders, 3 times what they have been at the highest point. So just curious.
Yes, sir.
Good one for tomorrow.
I opine that the prior administration probably was not pro-coal, so there was could have been some shutdowns related to that, talking about on the federal level. I have no basis other than just thinking out loud. But I know that you're new to the committee, so this is where she'll give the report. And then tomorrow, we get to question their board and get the more detailed questions that she may not have available to her.
Senator Van.
This is something I'd like for the members to be thinking about, pondering as we go through some of these. Looking at the board members, understandably, Tuscaloosa, Walker, and Jefferson County. Not sure that Pickens County got any mines, but maybe another reason for that. There may be some counties that are being left out of this, but I will say it's Madison and Dallas and the part of Jackson I own land in are not being spurned. And I'm thinking maybe rather than just taking them off the list, because it may be very well that Senator Allen doesn't want one of them or something, somebody from Jefferson County doesn't want one of these members. Maybe we look at it that rather than going through confirmations that they're confirmed or they will be able to serve, because we ran into issues last year on confirmations and on local legislation. And I think there's just a lot of confirmations we just don't need to spend an hour on. And it may be that if we could change their enabling legislation to say that if they're not rejected, and by the way, we need to specify rejected means not getting a favorable report out of confirmations committee. But if they don't make it through the floor, unless they're rejected on the floor, then they're going to be confirmed by default. And I think this is one of those groups as well. Sickle cell, maybe we could look at that.
Representative.
And I'd like to ask one of our new members, since he's from Tuscaloosa County, if you might delve into this particular board a little further, because your county and then Jefferson County, would this be of interest to you as well?
He's
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking you were Jefferson. Sorry. Yeah. So it all falls to you. Because I think this is so regional that I don't know that I would have any expertise nor have the time to delve into it, but it's something that is clearly you're one of the 3 counties mentioned. So I'd love it if you'd help be our Thank you.
We continue to have more and more performance information with you guys, for you guys in this report. On page 14, we talk about the reclamation of mine lands, and this is the process of restoring the mine lands to a functional or usable state after the mining operations have ceased. We have a list of the forfeited bond mine sites as of September 30th, 2024, and what counties they're in. Most of them are in Walker County, but there are some in Blount, Fayette, Jackson, Jefferson, Marion, Marshall, Shelby, Tuscaloosa, Walker, and Winston counties. We also, so land on which the mining operations have ceased, completion of the coal removal and reclamation of the mine has been started by either the mine operator or its surety is what this is going to be talking about. So this requires inspections of the operations to be made at least quarterly. And as of April 29th of 2025, the commission staff was overseeing one reclamation project. At the cessation of the mining operations, the commission seeks to ensure that coal mining related damage to land and water resources is repaired and that the accompanying safety hazards are removed and abated. If a mine operator fails to reclaim damaged land or water resources, the commission notifies the mine operator surety and the operator's bond is forfeited. The commission uses the proceeds to pay for the reclamation. The commission has thus far reclaimed only surface mines. However, its jurisdiction extends to surface effects and underground mines. For unfunded reclamation mining operations, the commission's policy is to pursue recovery of the costs through litigation.
Okay.
They also, under federal statutes, are charged with protecting the environment and the public from off-site impacts. An off-site impact is defined as any result from coal mining that negatively affects resources, people, land, water, and structures. And to be defined as an impact, the negative result must fall within the regulatory scope of an applicable state program and must be coal mine related and must occur outside the area authorized by permit for conducting the mining and reclamation activities. There's different categories. There's major ones. This can include a large amount of disturbance outside the permit area, a large amount of sediment, fly rock, or erosion outside the permit area, a high volume or long duration of water discharge of poor quality enters a high quality stream. The impact interferes with land usage. It jeopardizes public safety and causes personal injury. Those are major impacts. Minor impacts are a small amount of disturbance outside the area, a small amount of the sediment or fly work or erosion outside the area. The impact doesn't jeopardize public safety or cause personal injury. And then moderate are things that aren't major or minor. That's how they define them. So we had some moderate off-site impacts during the examination period. There was a failure to maintain a sediment basin and then some uncontrolled runoff, and then 2 violations of conducting mining activities outside of the permitted and bonded area. And then on page 16, we have a schedule of the minor off-site impacts. And there were no major off-site impacts during the sunset period. The complaint information starts on page 17. This commission received 13 complaints during the review period. 11 were resolved and 2 are still pending repairs. They resolved their complaints within 18 business days on average. 9 of the complaints that were resolved, there was determined that no violations had occurred, and then 2, the repairs were made by the mining operator. The financial information starts on page 19. There's information on the 3 funds that this commission has within the state's treasury. It has its operating fund, which is used to account for the receipts and disbursements for the general operation of the commission. The receipts consist of annual general fund appropriations, federal grant funds, licensing and permit fees, fines and penalties collected from licensees. And the fund balance is retained at the end of the year. The bond forfeiture and reclamation project fund is used to account for the receipts and disbursements of proceeds arising from the forfeiture of reclamation bonds by miners who do not reclaim the mined lands from which the bonds were posted. Those balances in the fund are reserved for use by the commission to reclaim the mined lands. The cash reclamation performance bond fund is used to hold cash posted by the miners in lieu of bonds to guarantee the reclamation of the mined lands. The balances in the fund are the property of the miners and are not available for the commission's operations. The fund balance for this fund at the end of the fiscal year is retained, and at the end of fiscal year 24, it was $2,687,545. It's not included in the financial schedules because it's just sitting there as their money in lieu of their bonds. The schedule of fees is on page 20, and their receipts and disbursements are on page 21. The unobligated cash balance at the end of fiscal year 24 in their operating fund was $2,127,497. Their professional services are on page 23, and the detail can be found on page 93.
Ms. Wilcox.
Representatives, I really want you to look into why they have such a large reserve and what their plans are with that. You want me to list everything list by list, or you want me to leave you alone and you're going to come up with it, you know? Right. And there might be something industry specific that I don't know. And then that fund that is not part of this, I'm interested in that too.
That's the big one.
I mean, we're interested in that, just not me, right? Thank you.
No, we're all are.
Thank you.
Mining increases, like really big, but it's under.
Right, and they might need it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The receipts and disbursements for the bond forfeiture fund are on page 24. It has an unobligated cash balance at the end of the year of $7 million, and this is the one that is used to account for the receipts and disbursements of the proceeds arising from the forfeiture of the reclamation performance bonds by miners.
All right. Any questions? Any comments? Any further? Senator Carney?
Just so I'm prepared for tomorrow. So this, on page 24, you were showing the bond forfeiture reclamation project fund there, the unobligated cash balance is $7,046,000. And then over on page 19, the fund balance, $2 million. Are those the same thing?
No, sir. The fund shown on page 21 is the operating fund of the commission.
No, 24, page 24.
24, yes, sir. That is the bond forfeiture reclamation fund, the $7 million, yes.
So that number and that number on page 19 for,
No, the fund on page 24 is the description of the middle fund on this page, the bond forfeiture reclamation
Okay.
fund.
okay, so two different.
Yes,
So
sir.
that one's the bond forfeiture. I got you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Van?
This kind of hits on something that we were kind of chatting about here on the side or on an earlier one, and Senator Elliott asked about. I think it'd be important as a standing kind of view by the examiners of A, where's the interest supposed to go, and B, is it going where it's supposed to go?
Okay. Anyone else?
You may have somebody to answer that question sitting right over there if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
If they're, yep, go.
We check that. And if it goes into the treasury like these are showing, and I sent Senator Elliott text telling him those receipts automatically or interest on state deposits and go automatically to the general fund unless specifically stated otherwise in that specific statute. Welcome.
Glad you're here. I didn't know you were over there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, real quick. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow Senator Carnley here, and he's a lot smarter than I, but I just want to make sure we're talking about two different funds, reclamation funds, and then we've got this fund balance on 21 in addition to that, correct?
There are three funds. So there are three funds. The first one is the operating fund. Show that the detail on 21, okay? And then we have the bond forfeiture reclamation fund. That's on page 24. And then we have the cash reclamation fund, and that balance is shown on page 19 in the paragraph of $2 million, $2,687,000.
So 2,687,000, 2,981,000, and 7 million. Yeah,
Right.
7,046. Okay.
For a rainy day, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I get the need for some of that. I think that as Representative Wilcox said, I think the big numbers there, that one on page 21, which is those cash balances at the end of the year, and what we're doing with that. It's double, right? Mm-hmm. Representative Underwood? Yeah. 2.3, wow. Okay, for questions for tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, right, and that's why when I was chair, we tried to get somebody that was specialized in that area. This is his county. He's got the time and the desire to be the expert on this particular one, because I think there's a lot of little legs to this one that we wouldn't have the knowledge of, especially since they don't have to have a bond. They have that cash fund. So I think I can understand that one, but the other ones,
Question. So Representative Underwood, you were talking about 700,000 on page 21. Where do you see that?
The very first column, 2021, cash balance beginning of the year, that's before operations started for that year. So that's basically the beginning point.
Okay, so you're going back to 2020.
Right,
2020.
end of 2020,
Okay.
beginning of 21.
I got you.
Yeah.
Any others? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And 9/11.
My bad.
Stewart had to go get a constituent in his office.
Okay. The next one up is the Alabama Statewide 911 Board. So it's important to note that this was a 2-year rollover. So this is not a full sunset review. When we do a rollover for 1 year or 2 year, we go back and we follow up on the issues from the prior report. So we don't do a full report when we do a rollover. It's just a follow up from the prior report. Okay? And we're going to have a lot of those from here on out. The first 6 were the ones that were regularly scheduled for this sunset period, and even next month, they're all a rollover of some sort. Mm-hmm. So this board was created by Act Number 2012-293, and they are responsible for establishing a statewide 911 charge to administer the statewide 911 fund and the monthly 911 charge and distribute the revenue to the ECDs. So basically, every telephone subscriber in Alabama pays $2.23 currently per phone line on their phone bill, and this revenue is forwarded to the statewide 911 board by the telephone services provider. The state then disperses this money to the ECDs to administer the local 911 systems. Currently, there are 85 ECDs in this state. As of December 10th, there were 85 ECDs, at least one per county, 59 wireless providers, 94 wireline providers, 221 voice over internet protocol providers, 2 hosted private branch exchanges, and 2 session internet protocols. There were 2 acts passed in this last session. They have not been codified, but there are copies of the acts in the back of this report for your use and review. Act 2025-373 was enacted to further provide for local 911 districts by permitting 2 or more districts to enter into contracts to jointly provide services. That will become effective on October 1st of 2025. And the second act is Act 2025-376, and it amended the board statutes to further provide for the distribution of monies to local 911 districts, to allocate revenue to administer the state 911 voice and data system, and to designate uses for the remaining funds. And it will also become effective October 1 of 2025. This board is comprised of 13 members. They are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. There are currently 10 members. There is a vacant position for a commercial mobile radio service provider and 2 cable voice over internet protocol providers. So the seven members are recommended by the Alabama Association of 911 Districts, and 1 is to be from each of the 7 congressional districts as the districts existed on May 8th of 2012. 2 members are recommended by CMRS providers, and 2 members are recommended by incumbent local exchange carriers operating in Alabama, and 2 members are recommended by cable companies. Appointments that are made during the times when the Senate is not in session shall be effective immediately and shall serve until the Senate acts on the appointments. The members serve 4-year staggered terms. The qualifications are what I just said about how they have to be from different parts of the industry, and then those who have to be from the 7 congressional districts. There's no specific requirements for consumers. There's no requirements for racial representation, and there are no minority members serving. These board members are they don't receive a salary. They are reimbursed for necessary travel expenses. The administrator is Leah Misseldine. She is appointed by the board as the executive director with an annual salary of $168,000. The board employs 8 employees. They have legal services provided by a private law firm, Brunson, Barnett, and Scherer. There are 3 attorneys that work together to provide the legal services for the board. Expenditures in the current contract shall not exceed $180,000 per year. They're billed at $95 per hour, and the current contract terminates September 30th of 2025. Their website contains their current statutes, rules, the board's meeting minutes, updated announcements, information for public records requests. They also have their monthly disbursements shown on the website. All the revenues that this board receives are derived from the service charge levied on the voice communications providers and all the prepaid wireless 911 revenues that are received from the Department of Revenue. This board does not operate within the state's treasury. They have 7 checking accounts outside the treasury. The required distributions that are listed on page 5 are what's in effect right now. Those are going to change on October 1st, 2025. So I printed you all a little sheet to show you what's currently happening. And then the second sheet is what will happen once the new law takes effect. So I did it, and I used an average amount of $13 million being received each month, because I just looked at what they've been getting in this year, and that's about the average, and showed how it was required to be dispersed. So right now, when they get the amount in, 1% comes off the top for the operations of the board. The remaining 99% is split. The way the current statute reads, all the money that comes in from wired lines, landlines, goes to the ECDs. I just assumed a 12% of the everything just based on what they're dispersing each month. The remainder is split 80% to the ECDs and then 20% to their reserves. So that's how it is currently working. The new law on the second page, we still get the same amount in. We still take 1% off the top for the board's operations. So the 99% that's left is they have a baseline amount that is required for the boards to operate each month. They're required to make them whole each month. So the baseline currently to cover all 85 ECDs is $10,315,000. So each month for the remaining 99%, they either have to disperse 80% of what that amount or the baseline, whichever is larger. That's what the law says. So this was just some easy math. In this example, the baseline was larger than the 80%, so they dispersed the baseline amount to all the ECDs. And then the remainder is what goes over to their reserves. The new law also changed how they can use the reserve money. So we'll get to that. But I want to go through the required distributions both ways. Do y'all have any questions right now? Okay. All right. So for unused funds, the 911 board is required to reimburse our department for the actual cost of the audits of the local ECDs. That money is supposed to be paid for out of the 1% they take off the top, but should they not have enough funds, they are allowed to withhold that from the monthly distributions in order to pay for their audits, but they are supposed to use it with the 1% they take off the top. Their significant issues start on page 6. The first one is that the board has adopted a rule to withhold monthly distributions, which is not authorized by the board's statute. The board's administrative rule provides in part that when a district is non-compliant with continuing education requirements of the Public Service Communicator Certification Program, the board shall impose penalties on the districts by withholding monthly distributions and keeping it in escrow until the district becomes compliant, which is in conflict with the board's statutes. So the board statutes say that there shall be distributed each month in the way that I just explained. They're supposed to distribute the money each month. And this rule sets up for them to say if you don't continue with the trade-in program, that they can withhold your funds and hold them in escrow until you become compliant.
Pardon me. Does the new law say that they can do that?
There was no change to that language
Okay,
with the new
all right.
law.
I was just making sure. Thank you.
We have an issue that we have 2 board members continuing to serve on terms that expired on July 8th of 2019. We had some issues that came up from the questionnaires. The board members that participated in our survey, 6 participated, and 83% of them think that the board's law needs to be updated pertaining to how the board's funds are being distributed and how the board can utilize funding to keep offering services to the district. And, you know, there is a new act that changed the funding and allows some additional spending from the reserves. The new funding from the reserves, just in case y'all are curious. The new act allows them, out of that remaining balance that's in their reserved fund, they can spend it on the cost related to administering a statewide 911 voice and data system in compliance with technological requirements established by the FCC order. And they can use it for the payment of actual and direct costs incurred by CMRS providers in complying with wireless E911 service requirements established by FCC order and complying with any rules and regulations that were adopted at any time by the FCC. Some of the newer parts of the law state that after the requirements of those are met, the remaining funds shall be allocated for one or more of the following purposes: to fund the cost of all required training and certification of public safety telecommunicators, to fund the cost of advisory services provided to the district, to fund a grant program for districts demonstrating financial hardship, or equally among the district as determined by a majority vote of the board. And the board by rule shall establish the maximum balance to be carried over in the reserves account at the conclusion of each fiscal year. So that's language that is in the new act.
Senator. Has the board established that balance in the reserve account yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
The next significant issue is also from questionnaires, and this is when we surveyed the emergency communication districts. 16 of the 35 that participated in the survey indicated that insufficient personnel and staffing was the most significant issue that they were facing, and 26% indicated that technological changes and advances are the most significant issues that they're facing. On page 7, we have the status of prior findings and significant issues. The first one is considered to be partially resolved. So the original issue in 2023 was that the board amended its administrative rules in March of 2020 to stipulate that the board's cost recovery fund shall at times maintain a minimum balance equal to 180 days of operational and administrative costs to the board. So this was the balance that was being held in their reserve account. They said they wanted a 180-day balance. So the board, since then, and effective January 11th of 2025, amended that administrative rule to strike the language allowing the board to hold the 180-day balance. So while the board made this change and does make additional distributions from the reserves in accordance with Code Section 1198.5F, the board still has a considerable amount of funds available to distribute to the ECDs. As of May of 2025, the reconciled cash balance in the cost recovery bank account was $15,545,863.26. The next significant issue is a prior one coming forward again from 2023. And the original issue was that the board has accrued and continues to amass large balances in their bank accounts instead of making the requisite distributions or reevaluating the fees being charged to consumers. And we showed the cash balances from 2019 through 2022, and we list some historical balances there. We considered this to be partially resolved because while some of the balances have decreased, they still remain. So as of, we show you September 30th of 2023, the revenue account and the revenue account still has a balance. There was a significant issue in the prior report that this was not acting as a pass-through bank account as it was intended to, because this bank account, everything that goes in should be dispersed back out in the way that we described. They have fixed that. So while this does have a reconciled cash balance, I will say that this money is due to somebody. So we did check that. It has a balance, but it's operating the way it should. The reserve balance was $28 million in 2023, $17.4 million at the end of 2024, and then we pulled their cash reconciliations at the end of May of 2025, and it was $15.5 million. So that's still remaining, and their overall balance, as you can see, are They're decreasing the balance in the examiner's account. That was something that they did resolve to. They're spending that money down, and so it's down to $14,000. So they did decrease some, but that reserve account is still at $15 million.
So the fund that you said was owed to someone, the balance that was there, but you checked and it is owed to someone. It was owed to someone because they were withholding it for non-compliance?
It's a timing issue when the
Okay.
money's rolling in versus when it goes out, which is when it comes in from the wireless providers. It's just sitting there waiting to be dispersed. But at the end
Okay,
of the
I was just
month, it
trying to
has
connect it when
that.
you said they did something that wasn't in their statute, withholding money if they did not meet the training.
They have a rule that allows them to do that.
But they have not?
I can-
Question for tomorrow. Thank you, yeah.
All right. The last issue is a prior issue from a questionnaire, and it was that in response to the survey that we sent out, 51% of the ECDs that responded to our survey indicated that the lack of funding was the biggest issue that they were having.
Bless their heart. Yeah. That's pretty.
Okay, so on page 9, we have the financial information and we have the funds. Now, the only one that is really affected by the change in the new law is going to be the uses out of that reserves account. The rest of these will stay the same. They have the revenue account. This is where the money goes in and then gets dispersed back out of to the ECDs in accordance with the law. The operating account is where the 1% off the top goes monthly, and that is where the board's operating expenditures come out of. They have a grants and training account that receives their remaining funds from the board's operating account to fund the awarding of any additional grants to the districts outside of any other criteria that they decide to have. They still have the account for the examiners. Like I said, that is down to $14,000 as of May, and that was being used to pay for the biennial audits. They have their reserves account, and this is where they were sending that 20% every month, and that had the big rule for the balance and all of that, and that's where I read that the new law changes what all they can spend that on. They have a flex account and then a federal account that they use when they receive federal money. It doesn't have a balance in it. It's only used when they have federal grants come in. Their receipts and disbursements are on page 10. Their unreserved balance at the end of the year is $32,813.68 at the end of fiscal year '24.
It's the people that they're not distributing the money to, as I understand it. So it's the local people are having the funding issue because we're holding 32 million in reserves. They're not passing the money through quick enough. So it's not the actual people that have the 32 million saying they don't have enough money. It's the people they should be sending the money to. Did I say that right?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So when does the new law take effect?
October 1st.
Okay. I do like the looks of how it's changed with when the new law comes into play. I would like to know as soon as possible how they are going to determine how much of this money they're going to distribute from the reserve account to the local offices. And I know that's something they work on. They've got till October 1 to do it. My question today is this timing issue of 13 million in the revenue account that's a pass through. On a typical month, when the money hits the bank, how long before they do their calculations and distribute that out to the other accounts? How long does 13 million sit in the bank before it moves through the system to start the? Here's what I want to get to. When the local office receives a deposit of $200,000 from the state, how long did that stay in the hands of Montgomery before it went to the individual offices?
They make monthly distributions, and they seem to make them before mid-month, just based on the distributions that I looked at on their website.
So a couple of weeks, maybe.
Couple of weeks. I mean, like,
That's
once
good.
they get it in, they cut it off, they do their calculations, because there is money that comes in from the previous month, and it is a hard calculation to come
Yeah.
up with, but it goes out regularly every month, and usually by mid-month, based on just looking at their distribution reports that they put out on their website.
So it comes in toward the first of the month? First
Comes
week or
in
so?
throughout the month. That's why there's some sitting there.
It's all month?
And
Okay.
it comes in throughout the month from the wireless providers, and they don't really have control over
Sure,
when
I
it
get that.
hits. And they actually had a month where it didn't come, and it was like a 3-day lag, which affected everything. And they had to jump through some hoops and use some of their reserve money to make their ECDs whole, because they're required by law to do that. So
How often does that happen? The anomaly, as was described by a board member.
I will say that we met with them and asked them, and it had never happened before, and then it happened. So it seemed to be pretty rare, but they would be able to give you a more definite answer. But just based on what
Okay.
we've talked to them, yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Any other comments or questions? Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your efforts this morning and this evening and your explanations. And I just want to tell you, the atmosphere in here this afternoon has been electric. The enthusiasm and the energy in the room, and it's greatly appreciated.
Don't adjourn us yet.
Yep.
We gotta do the swearing in talk.
Representative would like to address the body about swearing.
And to clarify, I won't be swearing today, Not out in the open.
Well, maybe not.
Not out in the open. Can't-
Let me clarify, swearing and vote.
All right, so we, as a committee, have had some discussions, and the co-chair and I have had some discussions, and I've discussed it with Othni, the speaker, and the Senate Pro Tem. We feel like that in the past, some people have made remarks that were not truthful. I personally feel like some people were given a script and told us things that they were told to tell us that they did not actually know for a fact themselves. In other words, they were given a script, stand up, say this. And in all credit to them, they're volunteers, they're nervous. But it's so very important that we get accurate and truthful information that I would propose that we swear in anybody that is going to give a statement to us and make sure that they know that we're wanting only truthful and firsthand knowledge information that they impart to us. So unless I hear anyone objecting, that's my plans tomorrow, and I plan on using this beautiful Bible that I was gifted last year. And I have a statement that we have had our resident attorney look over. I had this brought up by the clerk, and then we just have a couple of little changes where I'll be saying, do you swear or affirm that the statements you're about to give to the Sunset Committee in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. If they don't believe in God, they can just affirm that this is a truthful statement, their solemn affirmation. So we're going to start holding people accountable for untruthful comments or rhetoric or just flat out fibs and lies. So do we have anybody that has any thoughts? I'd love to entertain any thoughts. Or
I love it.
I think that's a very strong affirmative, ma'am.
okay.
As talkative as this group is, for you to get silence is an exclamation point, I think.
Well, I like it when somebody says I love it. Not that, I take the silence differently than you. That's why you do what?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll start that tomorrow, and we'll rock and roll with it and see how it goes, because I have other committees that are very interested in this process, standing committees and others that feel like that they want to make sure that people know that we want the truth.
They need to, be able to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know.
Right, and should say, I don't know, if they don't know, if they don't have firsthand knowledge of the answer. And then we have some people that'll just come up and make outlandish accusations. I'm also looking to prevent anybody from saying things that's not substantiated, that they just want to be able to say and have people across the state or whoever's interested listen. So it cuts both ways, to the critics and to the proponents. We only want the truth.
We feel like this could help some of the creative maneuvering we witnessed last year. It may assist with that to some degree. So, all right. With that, we're adjourned.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
sir.